I think we met him last time. We attended the meeting in February. And also Jonathan Cox, your bond counsel from Epic Stevens. So I'm just gonna give you a brief update and then I'll turn it over to John to go over the resolution with you. We're still refining the numbers with your administration. You'll notice, we attended the meeting in February. And also Jonathan Cox, your bond counsel from Epic Stevens.
Byron's expert will be on this again.
It's like a bad solvent, actually.
Okay, very good. You'll notice that your resolution this evening is for $12 million. Again, we continue to refine that number and we will know final number here shortly, I believe. But just to go over the remaining timeline with you, it's slightly different than what we had anticipated at the beginning of February. But it's always a living, breathing, evolving thing. So we expect to get your draft credit rating back on March 12th. That's the next step. And then remember, we're using the State Public School Building Authority as the conduit issuer, and they're meeting on March 26th. So we have to wait for them to have their meeting and approve this from their standpoint. We don't anticipate any issues. And then we're targeting April 7th for the sale date. That's the date we lock in interest rates. And then settlement, we're targeting April 22nd. So it's slightly different than what we discussed, but not very. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have at this time on the timeline or otherwise.
What was April's second? So
That would be the settlement date that we're targeting. That's when the money would actually show up in your account and be available. With him. If there are no other questions of me, I will turn it over to John Cox, your bond counsel, to go over the resolution that's before you this evening.
thank you. All right, thank you, Jamie. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
The resolution before the board this evening, our firm drafted on your behalf as your bond counsel and advertised in your feature news. It is slightly different from other borrowing resolutions that this one has done in the past. In that, as Jamie indicated, this is a transaction with the state public school building. So it is termed lease rental debt under the debt act. So the school district is approving lease rental debt in the maximum amount of $12 million. As Jamie indicated, that is a max parameters amount at this point. The school district intends, when the bonds are priced, to borrow somewhere around $10 million. And this is just for purposes of DCD approval. It authorizes entering into a lease of the school district's main campus with the state public school building authority for a term of approximately 15 years. And in consideration for that lease, the state pub will provide the proceeds to the school district in the form of a prepaid lease rental payment. So you get all the money in upfront as a lump sum in that. And then you lease the property back in a sublease. And those sublease rental payments are spread over 15 years and an amount equal to the debt service on the bonds that the State Public School Building Authority will be issuing on your behalf. So the resolution authorizes the lease rental debt, authorizes entering into the lease and the sublease with State Pub. And then the max parameter schedule is included as an exhibit to the resolution. Assuming adoption by the board this evening, left behind some papers that we'll have to file with DCD. That's we have to do a second notice. It takes roughly 20 days. And then we'll go to State Pub, as Jamie indicated. They will authorize the transaction on their behalf the end of March. And then we'll close roughly a month later. But the interest rate on the bonds will be fixed when the bonds are priced April 7th. So a lot of more pieces to this transaction and dates to consider. But this is the only action that the school board needs to take to authorize this transaction to move forward. It authorizes the officers to sign all the appropriate and necessary documents in connection with the transaction. So again, this is the only action required of the board. Any questions for me?
No one, everyone understands?
Okay, so at the appropriate time, Mr. President, I just ask for a roll call vote
Thank you.
on the resolution. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, finance report. Yeah. Finance report.
If you want me to follow.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, public comment on agenda items. None? Finance report?
You ready?
Yep.
Okay. The administration respectfully recommends that the board approve the attached option A resolution with public financial management PFM. So moved.
Calling for the vote?
Mr. Conjar,
Aye.
Ms. Culpepper,
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton. Aye. Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Phillips,
Aye.
Mr. Warner.
Aye. Motion carries. All right. Public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. None? All right. Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn this session.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion. We're getting ready to go. You guys are good to go if you need to.
All right, thank you all.
All right.
Have a good
night.
Thank you. All right. Call into order, second meeting. Posted. How are you? Good.
Good.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I just made 2 copies for you guys to review if you want to, so you can just like look at it, pass it. Okay, so this is for the special education department here for the district. Carrie Poston, the special education director, and Miss Trapp is my special education facilitator.
Oh.
This is the data at a glance document. This is public. This is similar to what I shared with you guys last year, and they take it off of our PIMS enrollment from previous year. So this is the latest one that we have here. If you see, 100% of special education students is a little lower than the state average. We're at 19.3. State average is 20.7. The breakdown, just like most urban school districts, we do have quite a few more students with emotional disturbance and quite a few more students with intellectual disabilities. But the other ones are pretty similar, if not lower than the state average. You can read here, I'm not gonna read each name, but this is our high school staff list. We have a couple of new people that joined us this school year. These are just some high school special education highlights that were sent by my staff. So these are some pictures. Our life skills and autism support students run what's called the Skill Shack every Wednesday during the high school lunches, where they work on social skills, vocational skills, stocking shelves, running a cash register, and making change. Some more highlights, Mrs. Jones, our 10th and 11th grade, she teaches foundations of chemistry and biology. She held her 2nd annual Living Wax Museum. Students spent the month researching a famous Black American scientist of their choosing. They shopped for character costumes at the local thrift store, delivered an in-character performance. A lot of love and time went into this product, and Miss Jones students enjoyed hosting many elementary classrooms who came over to tour. Another huge thing going on at the high school, I won't read it entirely, but our transition coordinator is working on a PAYS grant. So it's for workforce development. It will give us money to assess, train, and prepare students with disabilities for competitive employment. If you look, they're working with, Anita Archibald from One Hill Development. She submitted several grants for us already. The goal is to obtain 40 grand by July 1st, 2026. And this month was exciting. They received the first grant of $4,000 from Members First. Here is my elementary staff list. We do have one teacher resigning and one teacher retiring this school year. Some elementary highlights. This is from actually one of our newest teachers, Miss Fowler, in our K-5 autism support classroom. They recently participated in a traffic light activity, worms in the sand, sensory exploration, Valentine's cooking, cookie decorating, and a rainbow pudding activity. Some more highlights. This is from another autism support classroom. This is our VB Math classroom where most of our students are nonverbal and use assistive technology. This was them participating in music therapy, sensory play, and touring a fire truck. Miss Pugh, who's actually here tonight, is one of our social workers, and she also is one of our emotional support teachers at the elementary. She took her social skills groups to the Pennsylvania Charm Show as part of an educational community-based learning experience. The trip supported academic standards in science, reading, and social studies, while also promoting social emotional development and functional life skills. They practiced important skills such as community behavior expectations, peer interaction, following multi-step directions, and self-regulation in large environments. Here's some more from Miss Pugh. She took more social skills students to a docked roller skating rink. The field trip was designed to provide students with a structured community-based learning experience that supports social, emotional, and behavioral skill development. They practiced turn taking and cooperative play, following multiple directions, self-regulation and emotional control, peer communication and teamwork, perseverance and confidence building. Here's another one from our occupational therapist from Therabilities, our K-5 readiness classroom. Ms. Detz, the students worked together on their fine motor skills as a team to create a giant class tree. The activity supported development of pre-scissor skills, fine motor strength, grasp, and hand manipulation skills. Another one of our highlights. So we went through an audit last school year with the Pennsylvania Department of Education. And that's where these sort of come in here. If you look at the thicker packet, this is actually what PDE gives us after the audit is complete. And it goes through all of this in more detail, but I just kind of wanted to explain what the FSA areas are. We do this every 3 years. And out of all of these FSAs, we were on corrective action for a total of 3 of them, all of which were signed off on by the end of last year. We were off of corrective action for, by the end of that audit year. So FSA 1 is assistive technology, which we passed. FSA 2 is positive behavior support, which we passed. FSA 3 is child find, which we passed. FSA 4 is confidentiality, which we passed. FSA 5 is dispute resolution or due process cases, and we passed. FSA 8 is procedural requirements for suspension. We were on corrective action for this due to, this was actually not the current principals, but our old high school principals. Suspended students with intellectual disability, which are not allowed to do. And what they do is they pull like hundreds of files from us. They go over all of our policies, all of our procedures. And when they looked at our PIMS reporting, they saw that 2 students with intellectual disability were suspended. So we had to do corrective action, which we just trained the principals again on what disciplining students with special needs are. So once they saw that we did the training and all that, we were then taken off of corrective action for that. FSA 10 is independent evaluations, which we passed. 11 is least restrictive environment. This seems to be a trend most of the years that I've been here. We have been on corrective action for this for too many students being placed outside of the district. So most of our students that are placed out are for pretty severe autism with behaviors and emotional support students. So students with pretty significant behaviors that were either expelled. Most of them were AEDY students expelled from here. So what we did was we added some new Patton classrooms that I shared with you guys last year with the help of Patton. So it kind of strengthens our continuum of services for students. We also had Patton come in and do some emotional support training with the ES staff that we currently have. so that it would also strengthen that emotional behavioral support here within the district. So then that was signed off on by the end of last year as well. FSA 12 is extended school year, which we passed. 13 is related services and psychological counseling, which we passed.
Karen,
Yes,
before you go on, I was just gonna.
Yeah.
Quick, just out of curiosity, so I understand. For the FSA 8-1, just kind of give us a rundown if you can. What is a principal's alternatives for when students have issues? I mean, if they're being bad at school and they have intellectual disabilities, I mean, you still have to manage that, but it's not a disruption to
Yeah.
other students. What are there?
normally what we do is the student will go to in-school suspension, which is allowed because the case manager pushes in and is still able to provide free appropriate public education for that student. So, that's normally the route that we go. We've done other things where the student goes to the classroom for a period, goes to ISS for some of the day, for part of the day. But we have to still provide FAPE for a student with intellectual disability regardless.
So it can't be, like out of school suspension. but it
Exactly,
can-
because we can't provide FAPE for that student if they're not here.
Gotcha, thank
Yep.
you.
FSA 15 seems to be a trend as well. Last time, I think this is my fourth time going through an audit for special ed. Parent training, we just don't have enough parents showing up and signing for the trainings that we have. So what we decided to do, was create a resource on on the actual district website. There's a special education portion of that website, and we started putting online trainings. So as a consortium, we started sharing trainings amongst ourselves that are on video. I also get a bunch from the other services that I use, will send me some training, so we put a lot of flyers on there for trainings, different video trainings on there, so that students or parents are able to access that without having to come up here. So we were able to do that, and then we had Ms. Cree send out a robocall with like outlining our whole new special ed website, and there is an opportunity for training and a lot of informational material on our website, so that parents were aware to go onto the website to check for any trainings. Once we were able to show PDE that, they did go ahead and sign off on parent training by the end of last year as well. FSA 17 is public school enrollment, which we passed. 20 is intensive interagency. 21 is summary of academic achievement. These are done for all seniors who leave. So you do a huge packet for every single senior that leaves, outlining resources for after high school. The OVR, which is Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, does some job shadowing and things with students. Hiram G. Andrews is a college for special needs students, how to access special education resources at the college level. So we kind of spell all that out in these documents for each student, which they pooled and we did pass. At 21A is transition. They pulled 10 files from students that are 14 years and older. So any students in the district that are 14 or older during the life of that IEP, we have to do like a transition grid for these students. So there's 3 different sections. It is post-secondary education, employment, and then independent living. They had to do so many services and activities in each of those areas in order for the transition to get passed. It's very meticulous. I mean, you mark one wrong box or put something wrong in one of those boxes, you don't pass. So we have been on corrective action for that years ago, but we were not the last 2 times. And then FSA 23 is what they call an educational benefit review. So what they do is they pull, they just randomly pull files and they look at the student over a 3-year span. And they have to determine, are the IEP goals, are they progressing through those 3 years? If they're not, we would not pass for that student. So we did pass all of the files for that as well. So all of the students that they pulled did make progress over the 3 years. So as you see here, I just put a little blurb that PDE pulled over 100 files in all of those areas, including transition and the educational benefit review. If you look at the other document that I had passed around, when they're reviewing our files, this is the document they go through. There are 340 areas that they have to mark when they pull one of our files for every single file. If you fail one of these, you fail the file because it's not 100% in compliance. We passed all of our files through this document. So we were able to move forward with that as well. We passed all of them were outlined in this document, and all corrective action items were signed off on PDE by the end of 24-25, with the exception of PSSA participation, because you have to wait for the following year for the data to come out to see whether or not you improved. And what that means is, our special education students did not participate in state assessments as much as the regular ed kids did. Because we're such a small school, 1 or 2 kids can really throw off that percentage. So we did end up passing once the data come out this year. PDE contacted me and said they were able to sign off, because we did increase in those numbers. Any questions?
I was just gonna ask you real quick.
Yeah.
You had kind of hit on it there and it got me thinking about it. On graduation day or after that, what do most of our students that are in special education programs do going forward? I mean, I'm sure we don't do any kind of like tracking a year or two.
We actually do. Well,
Do
we
we?
were required to, it's cyclical, so
Okay.
different school districts are on a different cycle. So our cycle was, can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but we did have to track that. So based off of those summary of academic achievements and our graduating seniors for that year, we had to like get good contact information to them, and we had to do all that we could to kind of contact those seniors. I think it would have been 2 years out of graduation to see where they were. Most of our students were in competitive employment. We did have 2 students who attended Huron-G. Andrews, which is the college for special needs students. And some of them were in 4-year colleges, some in 2-year colleges, and then we had 1 in trades. So really, when you think about it, we might have about 13 to 15 special needs students any graduating year. So it was a pretty small group that I was able to keep track of, so yes, I think our next one will not be for 3 more years when we'll have to reach back out again and kind of see where they're going. I also, my part-time job is through UCP, working with adults with autism. So I've been gaining a lot of knowledge in that area that I just said to my high school autism support teacher today, let's get some of that information for those documents for parents. There's a lot of things that I didn't know in the adult world, a lot of red tape and a lot of things that we could really use as resources for our parents for when they're done, and day programs for students that are out there, medical necessities, things like that. So that's kind of one of my goals for this year, is to make sure that our parents are aware, even though it's not anything we legally have to do. I just think I have a lot of good information to now give them for, like, we have some parents that might say, I don't want my kid to do OBR because they're SSI checks. We won't get the SSI checks. It's not true. I found out you can work so many hours. They offer free counseling to parents after graduation, so you can see how many hours your kids can work and you can still get your SSI. So just kind of looking into the after high school situation, because a lot of our students that are autism support can stay until, now it's their 22nd birthday. It used to be 21 and you were done that school year. Now they can come back and stay till their 22nd birthday. So what do you do after that? So that's kind of one of my goals for this year.
But after you did all that tracking, you felt that most of them were at a place where it was probably as good as they could be.
Yes,
On
yeah,
graduation.
yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, public comment on agenda items only. Hearing none. Superintendent, Mr. Slade.
Just so you're aware, we held, business manager interviews today. We'll be contacting and set up a time for you guys to meet with, a candidate, so you guys can make a decision to move that candidate forward.
Nice. All right. Mr. Matthias.
Okay, first of all, before I start my report, the board can anticipate at least 1, maybe 2 transportation contracts for approval at your meeting in 2 weeks. We're in the middle of negotiating. I can't guarantee it will be done, but that's the target. When we have those contracts ready, we will run them through Mr. Lewis, vet them for you, and then have them on your agenda. So be alert for that. I also have two reports coming up, and Mr. Slade and I will tag team a little bit on some of this. The first one is the enrollment staffing report. Byron will be calling that up, and we'll kind of slowly scroll this up for you. The board will recall that back in November, you approved a resolution to authorize the superintendent and myself to do the enrollment staffing report. I'm gonna walk you through the data. This is something that the district should get used to doing every year. This should be a part of the budget process. The timing is important. You started in November, you present it, this time of year, so it can affect budgetary decisions. Essentially, what this is to check what your staffing is versus your enrollment to make sure that you are properly staffed. If you are looking at the financial recovery plan, that is initiative FM6. It says that we will do this. I'm not gonna read everything to you, but this report includes some data. By the way, I will email this to you tomorrow. Okay, or I'll have Ms. Chisholm do that. You'll notice the bullets down near the bottom of the page. The administration would recommend to you, of course, to ourselves as well, that if positions become available through retirements or resignations, that we consider not filling those. We're not saying don't fill them, but there should always be a thought process of, do you actually need this position? Or can you use the resources you have to do the job? Also, and this is critically important, you always consider the academic impact for students. You have heard me say that when I make recommendations to you, I will look you in the eye and will tell you that will not hurt the academic programs for students. Some of this information further down, Byron, you can scroll up a little bit, comes from the school code sections 1124 and 1125. You'll recall that I asked Mr. Lewis to provide that to you several meetings ago. What this basically says here is, first of all, the current state of the state law requires that there be no justification for furloughing of support personnel. However, for professional personnel, it absolutely is articulated in sections 1124 and 1125. If the furlough is due to a loss of programming or a loss of enrollment, there's not a whole lot you have to do other than put it in the budget. However, if it is due to financial reasons, then there's some additional steps that you have to go through. I will tell you right now, that is the case. Okay, and these numbers will prove that. The next page is the resolution you passed in November. Just keep going, Byron. It'll be a full page. If you look at your November minutes, you will see this precise thing, and this is what you voted on to say, yes, Willie and Harry, go ahead and do this report. And I'm not going to read that to you. You've already seen that. Okay, so what do? We take a point in time and we start to collect data. Now, I'll tell you, we collect that data. It's as of October 1. Now, you have to pick a date and time because the data always changes. And if you're trying to, catch up with it, it just becomes an impossible task. As that data comes in, we compile it, and then Mr. Slade shares it with his team. Okay, he and I look at it, and so I will tell you that the administrative team has seen this data repeatedly, make sure it's accurate and all of that, and of course, make sure that we are making rational decisions based on the data. Go ahead, Byron. So, data. First sheet here is elementary school. Of course, elementary is a K-6 building. And what we did in this case is we compared the enrollment and the staffing from 2019-20 to current. Now, oh, by the way, if I were to do this in a normal situation, I would do a 5-year gap. However, so why did I do a greater than 5-year gap? The answer, COVID. COVID upset apple carts. Both in terms of staffing and enrollment, and I did not want a unique piece of data to affect what we're doing. So the reason 2019-20 is there is and remember, it's October. So this would have been October of 2019. That was pre-COVID. It was basically the last, should I say, normal year, okay? All right, so when you look at the chart, if you look there first, what you're gonna see is the enrollment per grade in 2019-20, and then the enrollment per grade in 2025-26. The third column is the number of teachers that are currently serving in those grades. The narrative here, you will notice, says that between 1920 and 25-26, your enrollment increased by 5.7%. Now, that growth is, depends. It depends how many kindergartners come in, which you don't always know. And of course, it does affect some things. So when you look, for example, at the current year's numbers and the teachers, you'll notice that there's 4 teachers covered, 103 teachers in 6th grade. Well, next year, there's going to be a 116-ish students in 6th grade. So what will likely happen is a teacher who may be currently in 4th grade, notice there's 104 students going to 4th grade, may go to 6th grade. Okay, or something like that, so you make sure it's covered. Your elementary principal has the authority to make that move, and we've already talked, and of course, that's what she will do. When you look down at the third paragraph, by the way, remember we said that enrollment went up 5.7%. By the way, it's important that it went up. So it's nothing we do is due to a decrease in enrollment. All right, enrollment actually went up. Good thing for you, by the way. You will notice that your staffing went up 37.7%. I hope by now you now understand why we collect this data and why we share it with you. That's a relevant piece of information. But that's not enough because that's in the aggregate. So what we do is then break it down. And you'll see classroom teachers, 36, reading specialists, 1. Learning support teachers, 3, 9. By the way, that should not stun you if you've listened to anything that I've said, Carrie said, Willie said for the last 9 months. Autism support, 2 to 3. Emotional support, 2 to 2. We don't have a gifted teacher there. Reading coach, we now have a math coach that we didn't have, 2 and 2 counselors. So when you go down that list, and again, I'm not going to read everything to you, you will notice that a lot of places are the same staffing. Some places have additional staffing. For example, English is a second language. If you have so many students, you're required to have certified teachers to do that. And again, you understanding the demographic of the community, it will not surprise you to see that there are more ESL teachers than there were before. Go ahead, Byron, keep scrolling up. You have an instructional coach you didn't used to have. You have a technology coach that you didn't used to have. By the way, when you see a C in parentheses, that means it's a contracted service. It's not an employee. PCAs, okay? Carrie, what's PCA stand for?
Primary care assistant.
Those are put in place. Thank you, Carrie. Sorry to do that too. Those are put in place because they have the authority to be billed for access. They have additional training and so forth. You will recall, or you will see that 7 years ago you had 0. Now you have 12. Paraeducators, you had 11. Now you have 17. Now, by the way, you already know this. I shared this with you on a big spreadsheet about 2 or 3 months ago. And again, this goes directly to the special education teachers and support. So when you look at these numbers, what it's basically telling you is your regular ed is pretty much the same as it was, but your special ed has expanded dramatically. Nick, do you have a question? No. Okay. Any questions on that? Very well. Next page is going to be high school data. Of course, you know that's 7 to 12. We break it out by grade. You see where you were in 2019-20 and where you are currently in terms of enrollment. Graphically, you will see that You have increased by 85 students in the junior, senior high school in those 7 years, which is an increase of 15.7%. However, your staffing has gone up 62.5%. That's a little unfair because when you see a blank square in the chart, it's because we just don't have any data. We don't know for sure. There may have been a position, there may not have been a position, we don't know. But it's not enough to dramatically throw off the percentage increase. So you've seen, yes, you've seen a growth in students, but the growth in staff is just really through the roof. Again, should not surprise you. You heard me talk about the COVID funds and what happened at staffing COVID. I've shown you graphs. This just backs all that up. And when you dive into the numbers, it's even more so. So the core academic teachers has gone from 24 to 22, learning support 4 to 10. There's an emotional support teacher. There's this additional special ed transition teacher. Guidance has stayed the same. There's now a college and career counselor. You do see that the nurse, now there's actually 2 personnel and the nurse. You don't actually need 2 personnel, 1, but they're contracted services. Health and PE is the same. And again, Byron will scroll that up and you can take a kind of a deep dive. The high school has some different services that the elementary school doesn't have. JPO is your, yes,
Probation.
yes, I'm sorry, juvenile probation. Could get the first word out. You of course now have the neighboring academy. That is a contracted service. Again, when you look at para educators, it's 7. You have a social worker, you have Check and Connect, which is an organization that checks on students who are having different issues with tardiness and absenteeism, and so on. You have a few more custodians than you had before. They're your your disaggregated numbers. So what we do is we look at that and we make a determination, this is what we have. What do we need? Next sheet breaks down special education. And this is important because, as you know, you have a number of special education programs. So the column that says teacher, it's not full far left, but it's the second one in. This would be where you have a teacher in a special ed program. So it's basically saying there's 1 teacher in each of these programs. Then it has the number of students. And by the way, Carrie would tell you that there are defined class list sizes for the various programs. Some are limited to 6, 8, 12. Some can go as high as 50 if it's an itinerant learning support. So the number varies, but that's largely because of the type of program. On the right-hand column, you then see the support staff that supports that particular program. So for example, at the very top, there is a autism support teacher covering grades K and 1. There are 8 students in that program, and that teacher is assisted by 3 PCAs. That's what this is telling you. So it kind of further breaks down the data that you saw earlier by special education program. And I'm not going to read all of that to you. We can sit on that page for a little bit, Byron, just for them to kind of gather that in.
Terry, how much of that support staff is required?
So
Here.
for autism support, max is 8, kind of depends on the classroom. So for autism support, we're using DB-MAP, which is the nonverbal kids that are on assistive technology. All 3 PCAs are used. Some districts have like a 1-to-1 ratio. We're at about 1 to 2.5.
So when you use the word required, that becomes a little, there's no, oh, you have to have this many
Yeah.
for this many. But the IEP team and your director of special ed looks at the needs of the kids. Keep in mind, if you have a certain, if a needy group of kids and you only have one person in the room, that can be problematic. So it depends on, you know, the need. And if the curriculum is broken out into smaller groups, we need personnel to cover those smaller groups. So that's a decision that gets made by the special education team. Now, when you add up all the PCAs and paras that are listed there, what you're gonna find is on the previous slides, there's more paras. So there are paras that have been hired to cover things beyond special education. Okay, and this goes to the extreme ramp up. Any questions on this before we move on?
Harry,
Yes,
the, MS. Okay, you got 12 students, 11 students, but got half pairs. So
Seventh
that's,
and eighth share a para.
huh?
7th and 8th grade share a para. She
That's what it
goes,
is.
yeah, she
So
goes
actually-
between, that's why it's
Got it.
25 and 25. Yeah.
Okay,
and keep in mind, Mr. Johnson, that some of these programs aren't like based in a classroom per se.
Yeah.
Like some of these special education teachers and their para, they will go see kids. Okay, what Carrie or the state calls itinerant. Okay, so, and again, it goes to the needs of the kids.
right,
If there's a para there, it means that's a self-contained classroom
right,
with a teacher and a para, and those kids are in there for the majority of the day.
okay,
Yep, the other ones are out pushing
and about.
into classes.
gotcha.
Yep,
Because the goal of special education ultimately is to include those students into the regular population. Now, sometimes that happens a lot, sometimes it happens less than a lot, sometimes it happens a little, sometimes it happens not at all. It goes to the needs of the child.
Okay.
Carrie, if I mess up, feel free to correct.
okay.
Okay, next page is now going to be recommendations. Byron's gonna go slowly. Okay, so we work through this. There's gonna be two groups here. The first one is gonna be instructional and professional staff. By the way, before I say this, I should remind you that your budget deficit is $4,555,000. The numbers in red would be approximately how much you would save with these recommendations. Okay, one junior, senior high school science teacher. Now let me explain how we do this. So what I do is I pull up a spreadsheet that has all the classes by department and all the enrollment of the classes. So I was a math teacher. So Algebra 1 in this school, in junior, senior high school, may have 6 sections with 107 kids. Okay, whatever it is. Okay, put it up there. What I then do is I take a section out and see what happens to the class size. Now, I will tell you, and Willie will confirm this, that in this school district, class size traditionally has been 25. It isn't. It is dramatically lower than that. And I will tell you that the benchmark I used was 20. So if I took a section out, what I was looking for was, did the class size stay under 20? I didn't go to 25. All right. And then I would, so let's say we have science up there, and I would go through the sections and I would take sections out. If I can get to 6, 7, 8 sections, that's a teacher. That's how I do it. So essentially what that means is you're still offering all the sections. You're just offering one less of them than you are now, which means when Mr. Shaleski does the school schedule, instead of maybe having 6 sections of algebra, he has 5 sections of algebra, but he still has places for all the kids to fall. That's the methodology that I use to do that. So we're requesting to furlough 1 junior, senior high school science teacher, 1 elementary school instructional coach. Keep going, Byron. The elementary school transition teacher.
What position would that person play?
Go ahead, Carrie. Or Willie, I don't care.
The transition.
Transition.
Megan?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Megan.
It's a teacher that has a caseload of some of our emotional support kids, but we are able due to the numbers to combine caseloads and put it on one person instead of 2.
like Harry said, out of her caseload, 3 of them have since moved out to regular ed because they made so much progress, so she was only left with 3. So we're able to absorb them.
Into our emotional support teachers caseload.
1 PCA. 10 paraeducators, and by the way, that would be 8 at the elementary school, 2 at the high school. 2 in-school suspension coordinators. These are people that oversee in-school suspension. They don't teach classes. Go
So
ahead.
we won't have in-school suspension.
I didn't say that.
How many?
I said the coordinate. So what would happen is the principals would assign other people to cover that. It would be an assignment. Which is, by the way, 95% of the school districts in the United States do that. Now, we have also received the draft, not final, special education audit, which has recommended that we look at our class lists and has basically said, look, there are some places where you can do one of 2 things. Now, where we are right now is one of the things. We're not at the other one yet. There are positions in learning support and therapeutic support where the numbers indicate that we can reduce teachers. It also says that Hayes School, by the way, we're open to this, okay, I'm saying this to you. Hayes School District, if you want to keep some of those teachers, go ahead. Look for programming where you're sending students out and paying large amounts of tuition. That those students could come back and you could save more money by keeping the teacher, keeping, by the way, the paras that would support those positions and bringing those students in-house. I will tell you that, the lowest tuition we pay for an outside placement is about $35,000 a year. That is the lowest tuition we've had. So start to think about the math there. And there's a place where if you can bring enough students back, you decide to keep one of these teachers and the paras that support it. Go ahead, Nick.
Are we doing this by certification and seniority?
So-
What's your process?
Well, you're jumping ahead of me, but I'll answer it. That's a
Okay.
good question.
I usually am there.
That's actually smart. That's good. So, based on the data in the law, the way it works is so if it's based on financial implications, there's some nuance to that law. First of all, you can go to people who have a lower rating in their most recent, which would be the end of last year, evaluations. Second of all is if you have non-certified people, by the way, we do. Third of all is if you would have non-tenured people. And then you work up certification area. Now, I will say it that way because that's the way it is. However, it's not that straightforward. By the way, you notice you'll see no names here because I don't even know what the names are yet. I don't know. And here's why. So let's say let's use instructional coach for as an example. That looks like it's one person. Now, I don't know who that is, and I don't know what certification they have, and I don't know what years of service they have. But let's say they have 20 years of service and they are certified as an elementary school teacher. Well, they have seniority. So it would be the position that's gone, but the person themselves would bump. Okay, an acronym. So somebody who's already an elementary school teacher, but who is less senior. So it's a process called checkerboarding, because you not only look at the position, but you also look at can they be, because a teacher can have multiple certificates. They can fall different places. So it will take us a little time to figure it out. You also have already heard me say, if a teacher is leaving, they're moving away, they're retiring. Well, they're already gonna go. So what it does is it saves everybody else. And of course, we will maximize that the best we can. And then the last thing is, this would be a school psychologist. This would be a part-time position. Okay, we have two part-timers. This would be one of those part-timers. I fixed it one place and not the other. Sorry, Carrie.
That's okay, I was wondering.
But that would be roughly 1.6 or so million dollars. Keep going, Byron. Then additionally, we have an assistant director of buildings and grounds, which we are requesting you furlough. When you look at the number of custodians that we have, that's what this person oversees. There's just not a need for a position like that. I'll come back to this. The high school dean of students position, right now that's open. It's not filled anyway, so we won't fill it, but what we will do, and you'll see the parentheses there, we will allow Mr. Shaleski that if he feels there's duties there that are important, move his staff around to do the things he feels needs to be done. I am open to moving people around to check off the tasks. So student services and special ed offices combined have 5 people. We want to reduce that to 4. And the business office currently has 5 people and we're requesting we move that to 4. The third bullet down, student services, special ed, Carrie and Samantha have already talked. They've identified a person and we've already talked about that transfer. They'll transfer to fill for somebody who's retiring. So done. Okay, we just will move people to not fill the retirement. Also, this is kind of an innovative thing. You have a contract with a group that provides you with substitute teachers. What we're going to suggest is that you not do that contract, except for one person in the elementary school. They feel they need that. And instead, hire 2 part-time people who can supervise essentially a study hall, if you will, in a location like the auditorium. So that when a teacher is out, what they'll do is instead of doing a lesson plan like we used to do in the old days, they'll do a digital lesson plan. New days. What they'll do is they will send the kids their lesson on their device. Kids go to that location, the teacher knows their kids are coming. Hey, Mr. Matthias's algebra class is coming down because he's out today. They go in there, they sit down, the person in charge says, okay, Mr. Matthias's class right there. And oh, by the way, it'll be on their device, not their phone. Sorry, I picked my phone up. Here's your lesson. And by the way, the value of that is not just money. The value is you now have the actual teacher providing the actual lesson. It is academically far better.
So when they go into the auditorium, they're actually being provided instruction instead of saying, here's your work, go ahead and do it.
Correct. The teacher, the regular teacher, will send a digital lesson, and that's what they'll be required to do.
And that teacher that's in the auditorium will be able to teach that lesson to them.
They will supervise that they are doing that lesson on their, we're not iPads, Chromebooks.
They're not teaching it, they're just doing it.
They're making sure it gets done. Byron, is it? We also have a math coach currently. We're gonna keep that position, but make it K-12 to support the director of curriculum and instruction. And also the technology coach that is here now will be moved to where they are not only reporting to Byron, but also the director of curriculum instruction. We really feel that position needs to be a data collection person, support director of curriculum instruction, and also needs to be able to ramp up the teachers. You just heard me talk about digitally driven lessons. The teachers need professional development to do that. That would be the person that does it. So you see the staffing recommendations that go directly to the data that you see. Again, staffing in your plan is FM6. You heard us talk about the special ed audit, that is AC 7. You've heard us talk about moving people like the math coach and the technology coach and adjusting their job descriptions. That's AD 5. You've heard us talk about combining some people in special ed and student services. That's also AD 5. I will send you that tomorrow. I'm going to transition to my other presentation. This one, Willie and I will talk about together. So what this next presentation is, you're gonna see this stuff on this presentation, but you're gonna see more. This is now in replacement to Mr. Johnson's committee meeting,
Okay,
okay? So we have been talking here internally, and I'm using words that may be new to this district here. Strategic fiscal realignment. We are talking about changing the way the school is staffed and the way the school looks. Again, you have heard me say, we are open to ideas on how to do. If somebody comes in tomorrow and says, hey, if we use this teacher and these three PCAs to create a certain academic program for a special education program, and we can bring back 12 kids and save this much money, I am not saying no. Okay, we're saying yes to that. There are a number of things we're talking about, and the upside of how we have gone out at this is your staff is thinking this way. We are looking for realignment. We are looking for operations, and of course, these are recommendations to the board. Go ahead, Byron. All right, you heard me talk a while ago about how to go about this budgeting process, given the magnitude of the deficit. And at the time, I think I even mentioned zero-sum budget. Now, what that means is you have a pot of money, and that's all you have, and you start to allocate how you spend it until you spend it all. I didn't do that. And I didn't do that because I got it in my head that at some point we were going to run out and kids would lose, and I wasn't willing to do that. So what I did, we did, is went with a priority budgeting process. The first thing we are funding are the must-haves. So think to yourself, we're a school, what must we have? We have to have math teachers and reading teachers. We have to have buses to get the kids to school. We have to have a building that's warm. We have to have lunch. Okay, there's things we have, oh, maybe you don't have that. Yeah, you have to have lunch. Then there's things you should have. Well, what are things you should have? Well, you probably ought to have principals who can schedule the day. You ought to have a special ed director to make sure you're covering federal law and that those kids are being properly educated. When you think of things you are spending money on, you want to frame them based on those areas right there. Do we have to have it to do our mission? Should we have it to do our mission? And when the situation you're in financially, really the things how to fall in those two. Because if we're suddenly trying to fund nice to haves, but really don't need to have, keep in mind what you're doing. Jamie Doyle just stood here. You are borrowing money to pay for the stuff you are doing. You did it last year, you're doing it this year. You cannot, when you do a lease sublease, there's no other options. You have leased away your assets. That's what you just did. You have nothing else. So we have to balance the budget. To balance the budget, we gotta focus on what must we have, what should we have. So when you look at that list I just put up there, if that list, it's something that was nice to have. You'll notice what I didn't do. The elementary school did not lose a single classroom teacher. That's the must-have. Okay? These special education teachers are only on there because the class sizes said you could consolidate. Now, if I can bring another teacher back because of a program, that's a should have. Okay? So that is the guidance for the list that you've seen. Okay, Byron, go ahead. All right. We are here to align the district operations. This is right in the financial recovery plan. Reminder, your deficit is $4.55 million. I'm here tonight to propose to you budget edits, some of it's revenue, most of it are program cuts of $3.55 million. We will get you down to $1 million. which is remarkable. Okay, we kind of broke it out and you'll see PowerPoint slides on all of this. Personnel savings a little over $2 million, efficiency and audit gains of 550, contract reductions of 347, and then other adjustments. A lot of this is revenue of $517,000. Go ahead, Byron. Okay, so this first bullet you've seen. Second bullet you saw. Third bullet you saw. There's where it says part-time, Carrie. Fourth bullet you saw. And fifth bullet you saw. Willie, do you, so Willie, I would think the board would want to know, if this happens, is this gonna hurt kids? Your thoughts?
No, we've worked and had conversations with the administrative team. And they really did a good job of figuring out, okay, what positions, because when this all started, this was a little different. And what they went through is figuring out, okay, what do we need? How can we make everything work the way we need it to work? And I think what we have right now definitely is not gonna hurt kids. I think, we'll still be in a good place academically, which is where we need, and behaviorally as well.
It will not change a single program we currently have.
Explain to the board how ISS would partner both areas.
Sure, how most, like you said, about most schools do it, it's an assigned duty. So like the same as say if you have lunch duty or hallway duty, you have in-school suspension duty, so you have someone there covering every period.
And it's not gonna affect our contracts? Like if their free time, their planning period?
No, that would be an assigned duty as part of their day. Which the high schools already started doing already this year. They have people now doing hallway duty, they have people doing that, they've been ingrained that already. And that's the plan going forward for next year, and the elementary as well.
Don't we have 2 high school hall monitors?
No, not anymore.
Okay, Byron, go ahead. You've seen the first bullet already, and again, that position, that person's already not there, but we are allowing Mr. Shaleski and Mr. Thomas to talk and see, you know, how they want to cover that with the staff they have now. Central office, you already saw that. Facilities, you already saw that. And then the substitute, you already saw that. Now, by the way, let me go back. I said I would go back to it and I forgot. The issue of the Assistant Director of Buildings and Grounds. So you will recall, one of the provisions of section 1124 is that if you furlough based on economic reasons, and that's what this is, you must have a percentage of administrative staff furloughs be at least equal to or higher than the percentage of teaching staff furloughs. So you have to furlough administrative staff. So when you look at the duties and what is, you know, what we need, what don't we need, that's why well, it's not the only reason it's on the list. It's on the list because there's just so few custodians, but that's another reason it's on the list. It has to stay on the list or be swapped out with something else. We think, Willie, would you agree? This is the best position.
Unfortunately, yeah, all of our other admin positions, we are,
So
I don't know what we would be able to.
our maintenance department isn't already understaffed?
It's not the department, it's the supervision.
This is supervision, yeah.
There's in one supervisor.
Right, so will we be moving him to another position within maintenance?
We're open to that if we're open to that.
Okay,
We're always open to that.
I'm asking questions because if we're understaffed, it just, you know.
We are open to that. Okay, Byron, go ahead. Okay, administrative restructuring, a lot of this you already know. New director position, hire director of curriculum and instruction, starting July 1 to replace the assistant superintendent role. This person will coordinate the development and implementation of PA academic standards, aligned curriculum and assessments. And I added this last sentence because when we got the special ed audit, this was like the #1 theme of the special ed audit, that you need to have in place what they refer to as tier 1 interventions. The simplest way to say that is your curriculum that you give to every kid has to be quality. If it isn't, that's what the main driver for causing kids to veer off of an academic path and head towards potentially being identified as special education. The principal, especially elementary school, has done an excellent job with addressing tier 2, tier 3 interventions, which are more significant for kids with more significant needs. But if you don't have your curriculum well aligned, the whole school district can go off the rails, and that's what that is saying. We're gonna do professional development to the extent we can in-house. That saves you money. You don't go out and buy people. We will transition all professional development and training to be designed and managed internally. The math coach will be supervised by the CNI director, and the technology coach will report to both Byron and the CNI director. You've, again, already seen that. Byron, go ahead. Okay. Special education. We are, again, this is based on the special ed audit. We are looking to optimize in-house, that's the critical statement there, special education programming by implementing the audit findings. The number you see there is conservative, we think. We really don't know. First of all, you can't just snap your fingers and bring a lot of students in-house. There's a process that Carrie goes through, her IEP teams go through. They work with individual students, families, and all of that. And of course, she is attempting to, you heard her talk about FAPE, free and appropriate public education. That's her guiding light, and she is trying to focus on that. So just because what the audit said is, there are students, I'm sorry, I want to say this right. You have programming in-house that due to certification and programming, you could offer to more students. If you do that, you would be saving tuition dollars. Again, you've already heard me say the minimum tuition payment you make is $34,000 a kid. So that could be very conservative, that number. What we really need to do, and this is what the audit says, is build a continuum of services supporting special education students. And what that means basically is, if your school psychologists do an evaluation, they find that a child has a particular need, hopefully, not always, but hopefully you would have something in the district that could address those needs. Then with the idea that that program works and a kid can come back to regular ed, or they move up in grade levels and there's programming there for them. We are looking to make sure that is in place. And if that means we bring some of those teachers and bring them back into the district, we are open to that. Because having the continuum is more important than furloughing a teacher for kids. And then caseload review, you've already heard me talk about ESL. We want to look at those numbers, make sure we're appropriately staffed. We've already talked about the special ed office. Willie, anything to add there? Fire and go. Okay, contractual and operational savings. You've already heard me talk about nursing services. Under Pennsylvania law, the number of students you have, you only need one certified school nurse. Obviously, you have 2 buildings. So my thought process is that you have a certified school nurse in one building and an RN or LPN in the other building. And that would be how you would service day-to-day operations. You've already seen the report where I'm suggesting 2. Right now you have 3, and it can go beyond that if there's a special needs student that needs nursing care. We have a contract with a group called Effective School Solutions. You're paying $300,000 a year for that contract. And talking to Mr. Shaleski, he believes that he can better handle that service by hiring one internal counselor. That would be a savings of $180,000.
Eric, what does that, or is that like a guidance counselor, or is that like a emotional support counselor, or what do they do exactly?
Does anybody sitting back there have a weigh in on that?
I don't have ESF.
They deal with kids who have more trauma type issues is that type of counseling, a little different than guys.
Okay, safety resource officer, or school resource officer, SRO. This is basically your school police, all right? So, school police officer right now is covered by Swatara Township. They're professional, they do excellent work. They are here for us. We have no complaints about Swatara Township. However, in 2020, they charged you $106,000. In 2024, they charged you $117,000. It went up 2.4% per year. Pretty normal, right? This year it is $152,000. It went up 30% in 1 year. I asked for backup for that. I've not yet received it. What I have received is what they pay the officer. And what it looks like is, if it's right what they sent me, the benefits went up last year 87%. Now, I'm asking them to give me more information. I'm not, because I just haven't received it yet. So what is this saying? This is saying we want to get back to that one. Hey, can you justify what you charged us? Because it went up 30% in 1 year. I am not suggesting Swatara Township's bad. They're not at all. They're excellent. They've also suggested to us that perhaps there's a younger officer who maybe costs us less. So, and by the way, Willie would pursue all of this. There is another way to go. I'm not suggesting this yet, but just so you know, another way this can happen is what is called school police. Now you'll notice what this is. This is SRO, which means you contract with a local municipality. School police is that you hire your own officers and you create your own force. To do that, there's a step-by-step process. It requires approval by the Court of Common Pleas, that's your county court. And the way this is normally done, because you want quality people, you do not want, a guy that got his badge out of the Cheerios box. The way this is normally done is you reach out and get retired state police, several officers who maybe can work part-time or whatever. You create a police force and you get it approved. Now for this year, you're paying $152,000 for 180 days plus some other, ancillary stuff. So I'm just saying there's other ways to go. I am not suggesting Swatara Township's doing a bad job. I just think we can push them on the price a little.
Jurisdictionally speaking, could we look at getting Steelton instead? Because I know we're in the township, so you can't use Steelton.
No.
Correct. Now, by the way, in fairness to Swatara Township, here's what they would say. You're already in our township. You'll recall a meeting or two ago, we had a discussion about an incident that happened at a Saturday afternoon basketball game, right? When the call went out, who showed up? Swatara Township. Okay, and they do that. They're very good at that. So I don't want you to think I'm negative on Swatara. I'm not. I just, we need to look at the cost. As you know, through this whole process, we have talked about some teachers, we've talked about some support personnel. You currently have a position called a Director of Community Engagement, for which the taxpayers are paying $125,000. Not sure you need that. Next slide. There's some other things here. So we have a transportation contract that I just mentioned to you. We will try to bring you a renewal. That would save us about $20,000. Again, it's not finished yet. Now you may sit there and go, Harry, how can it be less if, it's going to be flat or up? The answer is it's less than what we budgeted. Remember, we're talking about the budget, so you could reduce the budget a little. We're also suggesting that we put the garbage contract out for a request for proposal. That's probably a minimal savings. We currently have a lawn mowing contract in addition to your maintenance staff mowing lawn. That's $12,000. We're suggesting we eliminate that. The business office had a contract through a company called EDM Financial Services, which collected data in preparation for audits. We believe, not fully there yet, but we believe we can get to the point we can do that on our own. Which by the way is what most school districts do, $30,000. We're gonna try to limit field trips to 1 per grade per year. Again, we can talk about that some more based on the needs of the curriculum. And you've heard me say this before, Neighboring Academy, and if, they, I know, offer programming services during the school day. If that is true for a contracted service, we really should ask them to utilize certified staff and a written curriculum. That way you can count those hours towards graduation. Currently, you cannot count those hours towards graduation because it's not approved and certified staff.
So
Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
those kids that are in that program now.
Yep.
Come graduation.
I want to be clear. In order to graduate from a high school in Pennsylvania, you must meet certain criteria. Okay, and the school district is required to have so many hours in your calendar per year.
Correct.
If a student is in a program during the school day that does not have certified teachers, time doesn't count.
So my question is, those students that are graduating this year.
Yep.
That are in that program.
Yep.
What happened?
I think we're fine. I'm trying to fix it going forward.
Okay.
Oh, now that you've asked that question, I'll say, oh, by the way, that school district has been graduating students under what is referred to as a waiver. Meaning they've not met the criteria. But the principal at the time decided it's okay to graduate. The state has basically said, nope, can't do that anymore. Mr. Shaleski and I met on that last summer, and he has had his guidance counselors diving in to making sure kids have proper credit checks, scheduling is happening properly, there are proper sequences, all of that. I've sat in meetings and they've done an excellent job. I think they're on top of it. And if they're not, they're getting there. Willie, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, they've been doing an unbelievable job. They meet every week and going over the kids, and we'll be fine.
Okay, so, there's normal stuff to adjust the budget. You have a new superintendent who's different, has a different contract than your old superintendent. You will have a new business manager who will have a different contract. You'll have a CNI director in place of an assistant superintendent. You'll have other new business office staff just by adjusting. And by the way, when I have a number up there, it's not only salary, it's benefits and all that stuff. That will save $125,000. Jamie Doyle was here. If we can get that bonded at 10 million, that will reduce our budget by $75,000. You have a cell phone tower over at the football stadium. We have negotiated a one-time payment of that for $317,000 for next year. That'll come in July. That is new revenue. And also, and this is kind of a nuance, but in the business office, one of the people in the business office, part of their job is to cover the cafeteria, to do the necessary documents and all of that stuff for the cafeteria. Because that's true, and because you receive money from the federal government to fund the cafeteria, you can fund half of that position from the cafeteria fund and not the general fund. So this is simply moving an expense out of the general fund, or half of an expense, into the cafeteria fund. There's plenty, I should knock on wood when I say that, plenty of money there to cover that. So that will save you additional money as well. Total impact of that, again, some of that's revenue, some of that's expense, $517,300. We mentioned this before, but Dan Lehigh has worked with Willie to submit, in fact, it'll come up like here in the next week or so. They will submit a grant to the Department of Community and Economic Development for up to $5 million to address HVAC units in the high school. Willie has been on top of this. They have worked with the people at McClure. They have also worked with a consultant that we got through my contacts for free that we hope helps you. It's our hope that we get word one day that, hey, you have some money to fix some of these HVAC units. So now that won't appear in the budget unless we get it, obviously, but, and anytime you get a grant, it doesn't affect your budget. It's in, it's out. So there's a revenue and an expense, and it doesn't change the deficit. Go ahead, Byron. Okay, so what happens next? If we are going to proceed with proposed professional furloughs, and this is to comply with the school code sections that I keep referring to, we will target that vote on April 8th. That is a month from now, okay? The provisions in the law say this, that you, the board, must pass that resolution at least 60 days prior to the adoption of the final budget. So go to the final budget, June 17th, walk backwards 60 days, and then at least one more day, and that's why that date is picked. We hope to have to you a candidate for Director of Curriculum Instruction by April 22nd. That gets that person ramped up to be in place for July 1. We will have the proposed final budget to you for May 6th. Now, that is your first meeting of May, not your second meeting of May. Why is that? Who knows? This is a test. Second meeting of May would be May 20th.
After the budget's due.
Say that again?
After the budget's due.
30 days. You have a 30-day requirement that it has to be between those two votes. So that's why May 6th to June 17th. The grant application, once we have that finalized, we will be submitting that. And the RFP timeline, we're already working on transportation, and we will start to work on waste management and get that out. Obviously, when those contracts come in, you vote. Questions?
I don't have a question. I know you said you would be sending this stuff out to us by email tomorrow.
Yes.
Please, like all of this too, so that we can fully go through it. I know a lot of information was provided to me, but we know the entirety of this.
Of course.
I just want to ask, just in general, I mean, whether we hear from you or administration or staff. The biggest thing, that we see here, like in terms of our expenses, is your personnel.
Yes.
And so I guess my question in trying to understand it. I know we got a lot of money for COVID, and that was one-time funding that dried up.
Yep.
But like when you look at, I wrote it down here, it was the 5.7% growth in student population for the elementary and 15.7 for the middle and high. But then you looked at staffing increases, of 5.7 to comparing that to staff growth of 37.7, and then the high school is 15.7% students to 62.5% for staff.
Yep.
So my question, I think, for you all is, can you help us understand that as a board? Why that happened? Is it logical? Is it illogical? How, if we did without before, are we going to do now in terms of that? I mean, that's my biggest thing is like, everyone is going to be having arguments for or against what we're having to look at. But if we were able to do it before, why aren't we able to do it now? And if there is a valid reason, I would like to know, that's really what my question is have, like, for these things, does a growth of 62.5%, is that truly justified? Like, if we had a massive incoming population of students from a foreign country that couldn't speak English, then yeah, I mean, I could see we do need more ESL teachers. But I'm asking that question is really what is driving this, and what is going to be what's going to be information for us that we need to know when we have to say, okay, yes, we're voting for the furlough, or no, we're not, and here's why.
Well, I remember I wasn't here then.
Yeah.
I can speculate, but Willie, do you wanna take a swing at that?
Sure, I mean, certain hires, like you brought up ESL, our ESL numbers.
You want the lights on? Yes.
Oh, yeah, please. Thank you. Our ESL numbers exploded and we had to hire, another ESL. Actually, we hired, cause when I first got it, we only had one and she covered both buildings. And now we're up to 3 because our ESL numbers exploded and they're still going up. We get new ESL teachers for students that don't speak
The
English.
special ed.
All that, and yeah, the special ed, I was gonna say autism numbers have
Post-COVID,
exploded.
those next
Yeah.
following years, our students were coming in so behind. So, at the direction of PD and Patton, we were to kind of continuum of services. So we added 3 full-time learning support classrooms at the elementary level. One's for K-2 and 3, 4, 5, 6, which have life skill students because they weren't able to fit in the autism rooms because they were maxed out. Our autism rooms stay maxed out at 8 consistently. So we started these full-time learning. So that was an additional 3 staff with a para in each room. And then those kids eventually moved to the high school. So we started 2 full-time learning support / life skills classes up here. And all 5 of these classes have been between 12 and 15, max is 15. They have steadily stayed between 12 and 15 for students that need to be in a more self-contained classroom post-COVID. Now we're starting to see some of those numbers, go down a little bit, but we still have 8 to 12 students in each of those classrooms. High school, they're maxed out at 15 consistently.
Also, our numbers for autism have grown significantly. Just saw a study that said just 3 years ago, it was 1 in 78 kids had autism. Now it's 1 in 33. We're tripling the amount of kids being identified with autism. Our numbers are skyrocketing.
We started with 1 when I first started here. We're up to 3, and I think we need to have a 4th just in the elementary for our incoming kindergartners next year, because we already have 6 that need a class.
So I think by looking at the data, I've justified why I've made the recommendations I have. There's been 1 K-12, 1 regular ed teacher, 1. And that's in the high school and it's in science. And does that make class size over 20? Nope. You have very low class sizes. We have not hurt the regular ed. And the special education recommendations come directly from an analysis of what the class lists are, how they can be optimized, and actually working to optimize those. And then, you saw the graph on need to have, must have, need to have, nice to have. And a lot of these things are nice to have, not need to have.
The only thing that I wonder, I mean, I think it's water under the bridge at this point, but, those are, like what you're saying, I mean, I don't disagree that autism numbers have went up and stuff. But I guess the bigger point is, since we're having to look at the financial impact of it, is let's pretend that we had COVID happen, but we didn't get that funding from the federal government, what would we have done then? Because these things that you're saying that have led to the increases, which I agree are there, what if we didn't get that money? I mean, would we have continued to say, well, yes, these things have happened to us, and so we're gonna continue to hire?
That's a moot point at this.
But I guess what I'm saying,
We would be, to be honest, we would either had to hire the special ed classes because that's by law, we have to have that. And same thing with ESL. So we would have either had to go into more debt or we would have had to cut core academic teachers that had bigger class sizes. Because there's certain things, special ed and ESL, you have to have certain amount of teachers per kids or whatever we had to have. So that no matter what, we had to hire those teachers. That was not, so we either had to go into more debt or cut other staff.
Yeah, where you have a nice thing happening in this district is the class size. Like your class size, when you're in financial distress, it's not uncommon to have class size of 25, 30. You don't have that. And I think given the needs of the kids, And, you know, the teachers need to be able to personalize instruction. I have stayed away from dramatically increasing class size. Like I could do that. I could probably balance the budget. But I am not going to hurt kids. So I believe this is an incredible effort. I think if people would have said 2 months ago, Harry, you can get $3.55 million, they'd have laughed at it. And this was done through a normal process. We just do what we do. We look at the numbers and this is where it takes us.
I have a question. So if there is a furlough and we end up having a recall because they could come back to their job.
Yep.
If they're not working somewhere else. How is that going to impact our budget where it stays?
So this is talking about positions.
Right.
It's not talking about individual people. Okay, so let's say, for example, what you say is true. So we have somebody who's serving as a para, for instance, but decides to move on to another job. Well, now you can go to the recall list. In fact, you have to,
Right.
right? And you pick that first person out and you call them and say, hey, would you like a job? They plop in. So you've already got the position budgeted because of the person that was filling it already. So there's no impact in that regard.
Okay.
Where there's potential impact, I'll say it again, it's like the third time I've said it. If Carrie comes to me tomorrow, or Willie, or whoever comes and says, you know what? We can bring these 12 kids back if we start a program that does this. You have teachers, you have paras that you can staff that with, and the only question I'll ask is, what savings do we get by bringing them back, and what do we have to pay to, that's the question. And by the way, I think there's a lot of opportunity.
And we are looking at some, we are working on some things that we think we might be able to bring some students back. And we purpose, not sure, I don't even know that's a good word for it, but some of the staff that we currently have going into those programs. And we would save a lot of money because there's kids coming back from placement. So Carrie and Megan and Steve are already
I
working.
think the
on that.
biggest obstacle to that is finding trained staff in these areas that have years and years of experience. Like these kiddos that are out at these placements, there's BCBAs who are master's level behavior technicians in every classroom. That's what I'm paying for. So like, yeah, these kids might not be getting in lots of trouble at the placement because the placement is equipped. It's a whole behavior school, right? So my staff, my PS staff are all non-certified teachers. Like they're not even certified teachers, yet let alone because I had 0 people that were certified even apply for the positions. So that's kind of where it gets tricky. Like we really have to pick somebody who has years and years of experience in these areas, you know, that are certified in behavior. Because otherwise bringing kids back, we've tried it before, may not work because we've tried different programs and different companies that came back in to run these for, you know, all kinds of stuff. But the kids end up going right back out because the amount of support that these kids need, we didn't have it here. So that's something we're really looking into is like hand picking.
We want to make sure that we have proper people in those positions because like Carrie just said, the last thing we want to do is bring kids back just to send them back out again. That's something, and I'm gonna be honest, we've had those, like Carrie said, we've had that issues before where we've done stuff like that. And we didn't staff it right and kids came back and it was a total disaster and we had to place them right back out. We cannot do that.
So
Not
this
to
may
mention,
be a
I
dumb
can't just
question.
bring a kid back. Like
So this-
data has to show that's how it is.
So this
it-
may be a dumb question then. We're looking at all these staff cuts and things like that. We're saying we can't get qualified people to apply. And the schools that they're in, they're dealing with master's type people. But we have people in our district who are being let go. Have we asked them if they want to go back to school and learn how to do this? And we're still bringing those kids back. We're still saving money. I'm not asking that. I know it doesn't stop us.
So I
But
think
what I'm
that's sort of the
saying
plan.
is,
I think that is.
saving our staff and bringing our staff and saying, hey, Miss Teacher, we know we have to let you go.
Didn't we lose,
I see what
didn't we lose some that were certified?
I totally see what you're saying, and that's what we're trying to use our current staff to
Yeah,
use
right.
it. But we gotta have staff that are ready to go day one, because these kids gotta be dealt with day one, so we can't have staff learning on the job with this one. With the behavior thing. Now, other things we can look at But with the behavior thing, they gotta know what they're doing day one, because if not, we're going to place them to get back.
So Mr. Wanda, to answer your question,
But
we are open to that.
Yeah.
But they have to be qualified certified. I'll close with this. Everything that's up here is in here. If you wanna know why is that there, I can point to an initiative that authorizes to do
I'm right,
this.
and I'm not questioning anything that's in there, I'm questioning how it's being handled. I mean, if we're saying about saving money, okay,
Harry, can I ask one question?
Of course.
Your first bullet up there, for your April 8th date
Yes.
is, am I comfortable to say that there won't be any changes between now and April 8th unless it's in, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, can I?
I do understand what you're saying. I am open to listening to things, but this is the list right now.
Correct.
If it's gonna be something else, the board will get informed prior to their vote.
Okay.
And we have one more meeting between now and their vote.
But it could change.
I'll do an example. If we open a special education program and need a teacher and need 3 paras, those will be taken off the list. That's an example of how it would change.
Yeah.
But would only change if it's a economically feasible recommendation.
everyone good?
One thing,
Yes, sir.
which we had discussed, okay? It could also change, like Harry said, it's based on 20 in a class, 20 or less in a classroom. If they decide to go 25, it's gonna change. It's gonna be saving money. So that's things that they're talking about now, okay? But that's something we're gonna have to settle before we gotta vote.
Right.
Okay?
Thank you. I appreciate your patience. Obviously, this wasn't the most pleasant presentation, but it's why I was brought here.
All right, thank you, sir. For budget, nothing for central office, nothing for HR, discipline, athletics. No, negotiation.
Mike, I want to schedule a meeting for athletic, for all the coaches, to come in, the winter coaches and, go over their programs and things like that.
So we'll get with you with Mr. Slade and Mr. Irby, we get that set up, sir.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, negotiations, nothing, we're good? Well, nothing yet. Are we're going to,
Contract, you need to go fix.
yeah.
You gonna do that, you talking about purple, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. That there's some things that we're going to possibly have to work on there with negotiations then.
Correct.
All right, school board president, nothing right now. Solicitor,
Nothing, thank you.
board roundtable? Anyone? Hearing nothing? Public comment on agenda or non-agenda items?
Mike.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. State Representative Dave Mattson, we're also ironically enough doing the state budget right now. So I appreciate what you're all doing, taking up your free time, or as volunteer board members to, dive into a budget, look at what you can do to finding solutions. I appreciate PDE's, all their expertise and work. I know you have some tough decisions as a board ahead. But just wanted to extend, Senator Kim was gonna join me tonight, but she had a conflict. You have our full support. Whatever we can do as partners or allies in this space to give you everything that you need, please know that. We are working hard around the clock to make sure that we uptake our public education funding. I know that's been helpful in previous budgets, but we're gonna keep pushing and advocating for you. So please know that, you're not alone in this. I know you have a long way to go and a tough process, but we're behind you 100%.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. So my first question, hi.
Yes.
My name is Tonisha Fulcher. I am a PCA in an autism support classroom, also president of AXME. I have a couple of questions. So my first question is, with the PCA being removed from the classroom, and it is an autism classroom, it's an independent classroom, but the classroom does have children that push out. All of the autism classrooms that are in the elementary school right now, they're not grade level. There's children on that are in different grades. I wanted to know, how would that look for us with the children being pushed out? Some of them being pushed out to specials, but most likely they're being pushed out to reading, math classes, one, to align with their IEPs, two, because again, the goal is for them to transition into general education classrooms, which would then open up more seats for more kids to come into the classroom.
So that would be a question for Mr. Slade and Ms. Armstead.
Okay,
They handle the day-to-day, and we handle the back end, the policies.
okay, and the other question I have is, with the special education, will we still have the support of Patton and the IU?
I'm actually, great question. I actually, it was talking through email with Patton today, and we're actually setting up a meeting. And I'm gonna get the team together. We're gonna be meeting with them probably within the next week or so to discuss next year.
But I do still have, the IU in the budget for next week,
Okay,
Ms. King.
okay, great. Also to your answers, not the quickest answer, but through Willie last year, there was an initiative because there weren't enough teachers or even kids that wanted to become teachers. The state did open up a door for paraeducators to go back to school to become teachers, but that is depending on the, independent learning. It is a longer scale for a 4-year degree heading outward that way. But that is, if not my understanding, I may be mistaken, but I believe that's being funded through the IU.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we have, a summer program for judo camp for kids. And there is a cost to the parent, but last year they had it and was successful. And they used the pickup here at Steelton, High School. So the person needs to know, can they get their paperwork, because they want to start that early. Howard Alexander, who had the program last year.
He just wants to,
He wants the paperwork to sign off, I guess, on liability insurance and just, make sure that he has permission to have this judo camp through our school.
oh, yeah, sure, either having contact Mr. Lehigh. If you wanna use the facility.
No, they have a facility they use already. He wants to have it, a pickup here at the school.
Oh, you're just picking up here. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and drop them off after.
Yeah,
judo
we
camp is
just need
over.
the details, the dates and all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Mr. Lehigh, okay, I'll let him know.
Anyone else?
Could I just make an announcement?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No,
Are you sure? Okay. My name's Kate Bozart. I teach English 12 here at the high school. And I just wanted to make an announcement and formally invite you all. March 27th, we are going to be holding an event in the high school auditorium. It's for Voices of Freedom. It's like a new club here at the high school. I think Aubrey's not here, remember. We just have our kids coming together. We meet Tuesdays and Thursdays. They get together. They've been working on monologues, putting their heart and souls into this. They're just incredible. Our kids are awesome. They're amazing. And it's the first time they're going to be performing on a stage. So they've been working since it started, I believe, January 6th, writing their little hearts out. We edit, they make corrections, they come back to us, they get feedback. It's just incredible. And they're going to be taking the stage and reciting their monologues. And right now we're working in conjunction, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, with the art department to try to bring in artists, do live things behind them. So it's going to be really cool. And just a showcase of our kids, their creativity and also their voice. Some of these monologues, I'll tell you, will just absolutely knock you out. Our kids have so much to say. It's just kind of amazing to see that take flight, and I welcome you all to come on March 27th.
What time?
I believe doors will be at 5.
Okay.
And just so you're aware, this program was brought to us by a Steel High graduate, Brittany
Yes,
Palmer.
pretty bummer.
She reached out and,
She's incredible.
She's been great.
Yeah, I should say that. Brittany is amazing, and it's actually part of the Dauphin County Tourism Grant.
Yes, she got
So,
it. She went out and
yeah.
got a grant.
She's incredible.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Putting in my calendar
Thank you,
right
guys.
now.
Yeah, so just say it again.
Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to first and foremost, give my humblest respects to superintendent and the board, Mr. Matthias, teachers, administration. I understand, I overstand how complicated this process is and the challenges that you guys have. It's an uphill battle, and even the decision that you guys made tonight, it's a tough one to make. As someone that, has a similar position on the opposite side of the city, I understand how, these things could affect the future for the next 30 years. But also I wanted to report some great news this Monday. The Leadership Academy, in collaboration with Peyton Walker Foundation, completed the 2026 round of CPR AED. So our 5th through 11th graders are once again certified CPR AED, learning how to save lives, trucking away. And in conjunction with that, our UPMC Junior EMT Academy starts this April. So we'll be going to the educational facility in UPMC in Lemoyne. They'll take a 6-week course, learn everything from bleed out prevention, Narcan assessment, patching up a wound, the whole 9. And once again, they'll be trained and certified as junior EMTs. Because certifications are a heavily part of the Leadership Academy. And I just also wanted to send an extension to any board member that would like to come by the program, talk to the kids. Some of you have. Mr. Willie's been down there several times. Even State Rep Matson's have joined us. We've had State Senator Kim come by. Shapiro had emailed me, Mr. Connor from his team. So it's, once again, creating the steam that it should, creating that positive atmosphere for the district. So any board member that would like to stop by, engage with the kids, talk about what it is that you do, we'd love to have you. We're still doing great prevention work in the elementary and high schools. And it's just an honor to work with Ms. Meg, Mr. Schlesky, and the team. So once again, just happy to be here. But I did have a question while I was in the building from Mr. Willie. I wasn't sure if the contract process had changed at all, but I'd love to connect with you to see what the next step is. I know we've been speaking about it since September, and we're getting dangerously close to the end of the school year. So I just wanted to see what that looked like.
Yeah, we can set up some time to talk. We should be good for next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll talk to you about some of the things I'm doing.
perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sir, anyone else? No one else? All right,